Okay, everybody, I want to talk about Mr. Wild and Yoka and their very interesting interaction that they had during that hour-long horsey playtime. Now, if you haven't watched the other two videos that I've done, then I will reiterate that I take this at 60 frames per second, which means that we can slow it down half the speed and still be able to see in relatively good clarity what's going on. That said, these guys are so quick that there's an awful lot of motion blur. But let's see this scene out as I've been watching it and trying to understand and then help you guys understand what goes on and what to watch for. And how this is going to pertain to how we work with horses, actually. That's the most important part, because the thing that we're doing when we're watching horses is we're learning how to be more horsey, more horse-like, more better and expeditious. I really love that word, to be honest, because it summarizes exactly what I think. I want to be faster, better, and more efficient. I want to shorten the amount of time that it takes me to teach or talk to a horse, uh, and in turn, just be better. Just like a horse, I want to be, if I can, just as fast. And so I want and efficient, and I want the same for everybody else. So, anyways, let's watch this scene out.
Or check on the horses or spend time with the horses, even if they're not mine. And I kind of thought, well, that's just part of the job, you know. The responsibility of managing. Oh, she's gonna get him. There it comes. Hey? It happens. Now she's gonna what? Cut him off? Make sure she gets her message across? She didn't need to kick that time. He moved properly.
Okay. That's the whole scene. Not very long. Probably about 15 seconds, I think. So, what can we learn from this situation? The end, in my opinion, it's not the beginning or the middle sometimes that's the most interesting. It's actually the very end. It's unusual to watch somebody work with horses and end off an interaction in a way that these two just ended off, where Yoka just says the thing that she wanted to say and leaves. And Mr. Wild, as you can see, is just standing there looking at me, like as if I don't know what he's thinking. He's just standing there, right? So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna wander back through time here, and we're gonna take a look. It's always so weird to watch them work backwards like this. Anyhow, so what do we want to understand what's going on? So let's go back just a little bit further. Okay, so let's go back just a little bit further, and we can see that they're standing in reasonably good close proximity. They've been goofing around together for a little while. So if we just kind of come forward at half speed, we've got Lena who's turning around to him and having a little bit of communication. So he's like, well, I guess I'll just go this way over here. So it's a bit of a bonus in a way that we can watch how horses, because I've got so many horses in the arena, we can see how many horses can make up the herd and the interactions and actions of each of them. So he's been sort of driven away by Lena for whatever reason. We don't really know. She doesn't really want him, or she does, maybe because sometimes she plays with him. Doesn't matter. He leaves, and we'll just keep on going half the speed. So he makes his way over to Yoka. She says, what do you want? But she's game. She's game to sort of be like, well. So he comes over and gives a little nip on her mouth, and she nips back, and they sort of play. This is what I call beard trimming. And up until about there, I think that it's kind of innocuous. She's sort of reaching for the closest part of his body, and he's reaching for the closest part of her, and they're sort of just goofing off a little bit. But right when it gets to about here, where he's going to try to chew on her cheek, I think it means something different. And so now she's upset. This is very upset fluffer. Look at that. Look at that thing go. Anyhow, sorry. So she's upset. You can see her ears are going back. His ears are a little floppy. If we watch him, he's sort of still just goofing around a little bit. But that changes very fast. So she's pretty upset. Her back end starts to come around. You see how her back right leg sort of shifts under her body for the maximum amount of movement that she'll be able to make out of her back left. And that'll come out wide. And just as she starts to turn, he thinks he has an opportunity because she's come up sideways and doesn't have her rear end round fast enough. So he makes a charge and he's ready to sort of chomp down on her withers. Now, Yoka's an experienced fighter, I guess you could say, defender of her own personal space, and she has absolutely no problem following through with anything and everything she says. And I think that's really valuable when it comes to working with horses. Plenty of times when we work with horses, we'll ask for something and then we're sort of wishy-washy about it. We don't really follow. It's not like we have to follow through with kicks and hits. In fact, that's a very detrimental side to many horse training methods that are out there, people that work with horses. But she already told him. If we go back here a little bit, she's already sort of said right there. She says, hey, get off of me. I'm not interested. Ears are back. Second thing, eyes. Look at her eyes. They start to get really sort of dark and heavy, right? So we can see that. It's very furrowed brow almost. We want to be able to pay attention to that. He can see that. He knows. So just as she starts to come around a little bit, he's like, opportunity. See, he's already moving. He's already got his body in position. And then chomp. And he's going to try to use his body. I mean, look, this is a crazy position to be in. Think about that. It's 1,100-pound Mr. Wild trying to squish an 800-pound, maybe 900. I don't know. She's pretty thick. Icelandic yoka. And she's like, no, this isn't going to fly. I'm going to get very mad at you. And so she yells at him verbally. I think she squealed a little bit. I'm not really sure. But it's right about here that he's sort of starting to figure out that trouble's coming and he'd better get moving because he's already starting to make an exit. See, his head's coming over and he's leaving. And this doesn't take long at all. Let's count the frames once again. So from the point of where he makes a decision, which is probably right there, I think. So let's start counting frames again. The reason this is so important to understand, to be able to visualize how fast do horses react, is because when they hang around with us, they're reacting at the same speed. And so I think so 60 frames per second. So we know we have 60 times I got to hit the button here. We're going to watch it go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. We're at half a second, and he's already making his attack. Half a second. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Oh, 40, 49, 42, 44, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 60. 1 second. 1 second, he's gone from, I'm going to make an attack, to, I think I need to bail. 1 second for her to have started to bring her butt around, to get it fully around. And we'll just wander through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 30. A second and a half. And he's gone. From the point he made a decision to do something to the point where he's on his escape is 1.5 seconds. What can you do within 1.5 seconds? It's very little. Humans are very slow. So understanding how horses move and how fast they move and how fast they make decisions. We have to remember the amygdala, the part of the body, the brain of a horse that makes decisions lickety split, like that shoot first, ask questions later sort of concept. The amygdala responding to danger is much bigger in a horse, and in turn probably much more practiced, much more powerful, and the horse's body is made for movement. It's incredible. Not that we can't be fast. Obviously, the more practice you get, the faster you can be. But anyways, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40, 50, 60, 30. So another half second later, and he's on his way out. And that's how fast this kind of goes. You know, if we just kind of come through here slowly again, and he's got kicked. And he did get kicked once, but I don't think it was very powerful. If we just kind of roll back just briefly, you can see Yoka's leg is kind of coming up under his stifle, which is the upper part of the back leg, sort of near his belly or groin even. So I don't know if he got a kick to the privates or something like that, but he doesn't have anything there to really hurt so much anymore, so maybe he's okay. But she wouldn't have really got a hoof up there. She would have just got her, what's essentially her equivalent of her hamstring kind of idea, or Achilles tendon up into there. So he knows he's got to leave, and he does. He leaves, and she's already got it. Look at that second leg coming up. She lands her back left, plants it, gets ready with the back right, ready to fire off. It's already up and half fired. That's not a very good fire. And she's ready to bring up the back left as well, supporting herself on her fronts. Her tail is tucked in, his is tucked in, and off he skips away, uninjured. Now, this is where the important part comes in as well. So it's, as I said, I like to concentrate on what happens at the end of things. But if you're wondering ever, well, when do I? A lot of people ask me, well, when do I end a lesson, or when do I end a thing? It could be a lesson, but there's a lot of things that you can teach horses, and you could teach them a whole bunch of stuff in an hour, but each thing has an end to a thing. So in this case, she's like, don't leap on top of me, or I'm going to get you. And he understands that and runs off because he's not as strong as she is. He's a stronger horse than her, but not mentally. We're not as determined. It's not worth it to him as much. So I find that really super interesting. So she's now determined to go after him. Now, how she goes after him is very interesting. She doesn't chase him directly. And you'll see a lot of people going about working with horses, and they'll be mad at them and they'll chase them directly, which is the best thing for the horse because it's easy to get away. Whereas she's kind of come in and said, I'm going to cut you off. You're not going to be able to come this way. So he has to make a right-hand turn towards the fence, towards a more blocked area. And she's just getting ready to make a turn. There it is. Now, when horses are going to turn their butt, their head has to go the other way first. So let's go forward slowly. Head goes to the left, butt goes to the right. That's why when we have a halter on a horse and we're doing any kind of round work or work that involves them curling around us a little bit, we want to keep that nose in, which is why a lot of long line lunging is incredibly detrimental to the mentality of the horse, and in some cases physically, but we'll get into that in another video. Because they're almost always, if you watch, the horse almost always has its nose on the outside of the circle. So the thought process for a horse is, if my nose is on the outside of a thing, it's not generally going to be in a positive manner. You're either going to be leaving or trying to make something leave. See how Mr. Wild's face is just a little on the inside there? So he's keeping an eye on her, keeping an eye on her, he checks to the right, checks to the left, and then checks to the right again, because he's put her on his right. But then right here,
make sure she gets her.
He nods. Right there. A little nod. She's like, okay, get it. Make sure he's going. And then watch her expression. Let's just go back just a little bit. So we've got an angry Icelandic ready to do some kicking. Her tail is coming out to indicate that her feet are going to come out. And her ears are back. We'll just keep on coming slowly forward. Slowly. And then she lightens up. Right there, right after he kind of acknowledges. And I think that nodding is a thing with horses. It may seem weird, but I do think that nodding is a thing, like a little down up. So, what can we get from this? That's it, look at the two of them. Just wander around, go their own separate ways.
He knows she's always going going to follow through.
And she goes and does something else. She goes and deals with Luke, whatever she needs to do over there. Now, I think this is important because plenty of horses will acknowledge to a human that they've kind of had enough, or they understand the thing, but the human will just keep on sort of, for lack of a better word, sort of beating it into them. And I see this primarily in round pen work. And a horse will be forced to go round and around and around and around, and then they'll be turned and go round and around and around the other way because somebody feels like they need to move their feet. And the long-term sort of driving exercise, or long line lunging as well, I think is detrimental. I think that without this type of communication being properly acknowledged, where, he's being driven. So if we just watch this through, he's being driven forward. He knows he needs to go. She says, you need to hang a right. I'm going to move in, and now you need to go more, more, more. He's like, yeah, I get it. I get it. I get it. She's like, good. Right there. So the lesson was taught, and she can just leave it alone now. She realizes that the amount of pressure applied was effective. She didn't chase him down anymore. She didn't get any further mad, and she just let it go. And that ability to let things go, that ability to just move on to the next thing, I think is really important. So hopefully that's been kind of interesting for you. And if you have any questions, let me know, of course. But these types of interactions teach me a lot about how to talk to horses. And it doesn't even have to go this far. This was a long way in. I think that this was a lot of effort for a horse to go talk to another horse that much. And I think that it's rare that it comes down to this. Well, every once in a while we get to see a horse do something to another horse and then follow through with a follow-up, like do something else to reiterate what they meant. And I think that's really valuable. So anyhow, that's it for this one. I'll see you guys in the next one.